Kia ora, everybody. Friday afternoon, 12:30. That means we're live here on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn with Frogs on Friday. My name's Mark Smith. I'm Group Managing Director of Frog Recruitment in New Zealand and People to People in Australia. So it's a fabulous afternoon here, and it's also, now I'm going to get this wrong, Te Reo Maori Language Week in New Zealand, which is fantastic. And Jacob, the man behind the scenes here on Frogs on Friday, has been working very hard with the marketing team to actually put together a playlist of Maori songs. I don't know, what's the right language that we should use here? Not besides Maori, of course, but in terms of the playlist, Jacob, I'm not going to get you to come online. I don't know. What should it be? Pop it up let's get it into the comments, because we can see live all of the comments that you put on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And so we can respond immediately to any questions that you have. So please feel free to do that. And Jacob now will pop up the Te Reo Maori YouTube playlist for everybody to jump into in this week. So, but that's really not what we're here for. On Frogs on Friday, we're here to talk about the jobs and employment market in New Zealand. And today we'll be crossing to Auckland on a couple of occasions. Firstly, to Shannon Barlow, who's got, she's going to be asking the question, should you ask for a pay rise right now in the middle of a lockdown or a pandemic in the current circumstances? Should you be doing that? She's written a blog on it, and she's going to explore that with us. We'll also be having a chat to Remy, our marketing manager, because it's the last day for entries for New Zealand Top Dog. So we've had a few entries come through, and he's just going to talk to us about that as well. We've also got the possibility of VJ from Auckland. He's on standby. There is a possibility we'll get a chat to him about an immediate vacancy that he's working on right now, but we'll just see how we go with that. We'll also be doing our regular numbers section, where importantly in New Zealand this week we had the GDP numbers come out, and we'll be looking at the Twitter poll that we put out last week, which was very interesting. So let's get into it. Let's start then with our regular numbers section. And this week, what we were anticipating was the GDP numbers. Now, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago on Frogs that the importance of how GDP does translate into the employment market. So I was looking forward to seeing these numbers come out yesterday. And so here it is, and it looks really good. So the GDP data showed that the economy was rocketing ahead in Q2, and I think it's at around that sort of 0.5 points. It's between 0.5 and 0.7. I always get that. I've got it mixed up. But on the graph you can see on the screen here, the quarterly growth is the bar, and the quarterly volume, the dollar value of our GDP in New Zealand, is the yellow line. So you can see the yellow line dipped during the pandemic last year, and then you can see the quarterly change down, then rose swiftly, and then we've been rising out for the last couple of quarters, and it was one of the strongest quarters, as you can see, besides last year, over the previous 10 years, really. So, but we're in lockdown now in Auckland. We've had the changes in conditions throughout the rest of the country. So what are we expecting then for the coming quarter? Because this is historical data. It's the June quarter. Then what's going to happen in the September quarter? We do have a graph on that if you want to show that one for us. Oh, actually, before we do that, this is thanks to Sharon Barlow from the ANZ. If you don't follow her on Twitter, then you should do that, definitely. This is the latest business confidence out of the ANZ. The two lines here is the dark blue is business confidence, and the light blue is activity outlook. And you can see that business confidence, business are actually quite optimistic about their future, despite the fact that we're in lockdown right now. So what that says to us looking for work or looking for jobs right now is that we should be expecting that the current lockdown, when it does end, there will be a bounce back and a snap back in terms of economic activity. But in terms of GDP, the next graph, Jacob, will show that the expectation for the next quarter, and this is also thanks to ANZ research, and I did steal it from Sharon's Zolna's Twitter account here. The expectation for the next quarter is a decline in terms of GDP growth, but then we should shift back towards more of a steady growth pattern. So it's not all bad news. It's quite good, but we got a little bit of rocky water. We're in the middle of what that second dip there is what we're in the middle of right now. So how do we compare internationally? The last graph I wanted to show you this week was the household disposable income. I was looking for a GDP comparison, couldn't get to it quickly enough. So this is from the OECD, and it's a comparison of New Zealand in the OECD for household disposable income, the net annual growth rate, and how does, so for New Zealand, and you can see that we're in red there. So New Zealand 4%. Australia is slightly higher. Slovenia, Hungary, then Australia. At the top, you've got Costa Rica and Croatia. At the bottom, you've got Italy and Sweden. So I just thought that was interesting. That it's not too bad. We're doing okay. So right, it's let's move on. One thing I'll leave before we leave the numbers, if you have any specific questions about the employment or job market in New Zealand, specific sectors, as we did last week for Vitaco, for supply chain, all you need to do is just let us know, and I'll make sure I pull those numbers, and we can talk about them on Frogs on Friday. Okay, all right. Let's now cross to Shannon Barlow, and what we'll do is we'll talk about whether you should ask for a pay rise during the pandemic and during the lockdown. Before we do that, though, we've got actually, because it's the last day of the top dog to get your entries in. Here's the winner of People's Choice for New Zealand Top Dog last year.
My name is Ray, and this is Mino. He's just over 1 year old now. He's half Chihuahua and half Maltese and toy poodle. He's crying. What makes Mino different in any other dog is like his love to humans. So I think that's something that we can't actually teach. We can teach him any tricks, anything, but like his love to humans actually, yeah, something that's really special. Last year was like a strange year. I guess when COVID happened, a lot of people got asked to work from home during a couple of months. So it was like a strange time. So I was a bit stressed. So he really helped with our mental health during that strange time. So he's taking up our energy, just like sharing the love and then cheering us up. So going through that COVID lockdown period, amazing, not too stressful, as we got to spend time with little Mino here. I didn't really expect Mino would win last year, just because the prize that Mino got was like People's Choice. It's like feeling the love from every people that giving Mino during the competition. So I feel really appreciated. Dogs is like best friend of human. So I think like every dog that deserves to be a New Zealand top dog, to be honest. So maybe it's a chance for people to get in the competition this year and take the crown from Mino.
I think I actually voted for Mino last year, and if I'd known that she was a little bit whiny like that and then runs away, maybe I wouldn't have voted for her. I don't know. You can, if you still want to enter New Zealand Top Dog, then you can do that. The links are in the comments there. You've got just a matter of hours, I think, left to do that. So jump on board, have a look. Jump on all our socials, you can see all of the current entries as well. So let's now cross to Shannon Barlow in Auckland, and we're going to ask this question. So should you ask for a pay rise, Shannon, during a pandemic? people are out there, they're frightened. I mean, with everything that's going on, should they change jobs? I mean, but then again, we've seen the growth numbers that look good. We're expecting this snapback. I don't know. You've written a blog about it. What do you reckon?
I have. And just before I get into that, I just wanted to say kia ora koutou, and also ka pai to Mark. Well done. So really great to see you getting involved in Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori. And I know I always give you a bit of stick about your Kiwi, Aussie accent and trying to pronounce, but the main thing is that you're giving it a go, and that's part of what this week's all about, and stepping out of your comfort zone. So good on you for that.
Thank you.
Now, it might seem a bit weird or perhaps not the right timing to consider, well, should I be asking for a pay rise when we're in the middle of a pandemic, different parts of the country are in lockdown and at different levels? Is this the right time? And I guess that's part of one of my tips for the negotiation is about knowing and acknowledging the market. And that's even more important in these times. So I guess one of the first things you do is look at your business and your organization and to see what kind of position they've been, and also to give a chance to perhaps to acknowledge the support and the measures that they took to see you all through, particularly through last year. But if they are in the position, as we saw from the numbers there, that there is a lot of business confidence and businesses are looking to grow and hoping to see these lockdowns as a blip rather than something that's going to put the brakes on the business. So they may well be in a position to be able to reward their staff. And I think the other thing that we've seen is this year with candidate shortages, employers' biggest challenge right now is securing new talent as well as retaining employees. So you're in a really strong position if your business is handling the current lockdowns well and is going strong. You're in a strong position to be able to negotiate or to open up the discussion about a pay rise. A couple of the tips that I would give is, first of all, nothing ventured, nothing gained. So for a lot of people, and particularly for women, it can be an uncomfortable conversation, or people don't really know how to approach it or feel awkward about asking for more money, essentially. But when you look at it, the benefits far outweigh the potential effects if it's rejected. So it's worth doing your homework and just, again, opening up the discussion. So another tip there is to be objective and relevant. So when you're looking at asking for an increase, so to be able to think of it as a professional decision rather than a personal one. So it's about your worth as a professional and what you can bring to the business or have already been bringing to the business, rather than the personal effects that an increase will have on you. So focus on your professional achievements and performance rather than the challenges and financial struggles. You know, there's a lot of those at the moment, potentially in your personal life. One other thing I will say is in terms of knowing the market. So you talked about the increase in GDP earlier. So one thing you want to look at is wage inflation and versus CPI. So looking at cost of living, for example. So at the moment in New Zealand, CPI has risen to 3.3%. So if you're looking at getting a benchmark for what you should aim for in terms of an increase, use that as a starting point. So you want your wages or your salary should at least keep up with inflation. And there's plenty more tips there, but I guess I'll leave something to read in the blog.
Yeah, well, yes, and I can see that Jacob is quick off the mark, and he's popped the blog in the comments there, so people can quickly link to the website and have a look at that. I mean, it's I'd just like to reinforce the whole personal versus business aspect of asking for a pay rise. That some people find that it's a personal decision in terms of the business making a call on whether you get a pay rise or not. It's not really. You've got to think of it in that context of it's of a business decision. So yeah, definitely well worth thinking about right now. Definitely. And if you're not having these conversations then I would encourage you to do so. In my experience, I'd be interested to hear what you say, Shannon, is that when I've interviewed a lot of people who are entering into the job market, I know one of the questions I've asked them is if this is all about money, then the very first thing you should do is go back to your existing employer and say, hey, can I have a pay rise? So don't be jumping ship if you haven't already asked the question. It's best to do that first. And if they say no, then well, all well and good. Then take stock and see what's out there. Is that your experience too, Shannon? Yeah.
Yeah, and absolutely. I think in terms of being negotiation ready as well, is to help out your employer. So think of different ways that you could improve your situation, but it's not always necessarily just about your base salary. So it might be particularly, we have seen that flexibility and that ability to work from home perhaps, or cut down on the commute. Those different aspects are really important to job seekers, particularly in the last couple of years. So it may be that you have a combination of yes, there's an increase in your salary, but it might be a way that you build up the different benefits that are in your package, or the way that you work your flexible work arrangements as well.
Yeah, total package, that whole idea of what is in your total package and understanding what's in it too. We could talk about this for a very long time, I'm sure, Shannon, and I know we've known to do that on quite a regular basis. But all right, thank you very much for joining us. I'd encourage everybody to check out that blog post, and if somebody wanted to have a quick chat to you, Shannon, how would they do that?
So they can, there you go, they can get in touch with me in any of these ways. Also on Instagram, LinkedIn, all of the social avenues. I'm sure you can find me.
Excellent, rightio. Thanks, Shannon. Okay, well, let's also now cross to another part of Auckland, and we're going to have a quick chat to Remy, who's the marketing manager of Frog Recruitment in New Zealand, and the person responsible for managing the hundreds and hundreds of applications for New Zealand Top Dog. G'day, Remy. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Oh, I'm good. I'm still carrying a few of the COVID pounds, I suppose you say.
Yeah.
You can't really see my jacket here, but it is really tight. So I'm in a little bit of trouble here. But yeah, tell us about New Zealand Top Dog. Where are we at? Because it's final days, isn't it?
Yeah, so we have had about 360 entries so far, which has been absolutely amazing. And yeah, we actually are going to extend the deadline. So it's not going to be today, but it's going to be on Sunday midnight, just because we actually received quite a few emails today of some quite stressed Kiwis that were just quite keen to enter but didn't have much time given they were working today. So they will have the entire weekend to make sure they put their entry in, and then we will close everything down on Monday, and we'll prepare for the judging day on Friday.
Yeah, it's we've had a fabulous response for New Zealand Top Dog this year. Pretty magic. So if somebody wanted to check out the current entries, what's the competition like? How do they do that?
So they can go on Instagram. So on Instagram, if you check Frog Recruitment, so our Instagram handle is at Frog Recruitment. You'll see in our stories that we post pretty much every day all the entries we can possibly find. I'm not gonna lie, I think I've missed a couple every now and then just because we have so many every day. But you can check them here, check them there. And you can also, if you look for the hashtag NZ Top Dog, you can also, if you look for the most recent pictures on Instagram again, you can just scroll through all the entries this year, which is quite cute and amazing.
Be warned, it's a rabbit hole. Once you start looking through all of those NZ Top Dog dogs, you go, oh look, that's another one. Oh look, there's another one. So you'll definitely, it's hard to find your favorite. But all right, thank you, Remy. So you've got a couple of days then left to get your entries into New Zealand Top Dog. Check it out. Links in the comments there. Thanks for joining us again, Remy.
Thank you, Mark.
Let's move on then. I'm conscious of time. We've just got 1 minute or so, a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to quickly talk about the poll results of Twitter last week. So last week we asked whether you knew somebody who had left the workforce permanently during the pandemic. Now, this was quite interesting because the unemployment numbers, and if you've seen Across the Ditch in Australia, they came out just this week, are affected by the participation rate. So when I saw this number for New Zealand, that nearly 60% of, I mean, it is the Twitterverse, you've got to keep that in context. So it's about, I think, 600 votes or there or thereabouts. But 60% of people said, 40% of people said that, yeah, they know people who had left the workforce permanently, that they're, okay, I'm tapping out, I'm good, I'm leaving the workforce. So it's a real thing in terms of the participation rate. So it will be interesting to see how that changes, because the unemployment numbers in Australia this week said that the participation rate crashed by 3%, like literally hundreds of thousands of people left the workforce. And it looks like that's the case in New Zealand as well. So I thought we'd sort of change tack a little bit in terms of this week's poll. So let's pop that one up. And this is more of a question about references. Do references really matter? So when hiring an employee, does the reference factor into your final decision? So I've really, the value of references, privacy, mobile phones, the way people are contacted these days, is there still value in references? I don't know. Let's ask the Twitterverse. So when hiring an employee, does their reference factor into your final decision? So there's the vote. You've got 6 days to vote on that one. Check out our socials. I'd be really interested to see how that all turns out. So that's it, everybody. Thank you again for joining us on a Friday afternoon. At 12:30 on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube for Frogs on Friday. We'll do it all again next week at 12:30. We'll see you then, and enjoy the weekend.